So it's 5 o'clock. If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of the things before we get to the appointments for the Littleton Police Department, we do want to re-emphasize when speaking, please remember to wait until you're called upon. And this is to help Vicki mostly too. If you'd please state your name, first and last name clearly. And we would really appreciate too if we don't interrupt each other. Or interrupt another speaker, and we certainly appreciate the courtesy, and thank you for that. So our first order of business tonight is to the oath of office for 2 full-time patrol officers, Spencer Bars, full-time patrol officer Benjamin Trapletti, is that how you pronounce Trapletti? And then part-time patrol officer Andrew Eastman. So probably the best thing to do is to bring the 3 of you forward for the swearing in. And then what I'll do, because it's all 3 at one time, you'll just state your name when we get to the I, and then you solemnly swear. So to the inhabitants of Littleton, New Hampshire, Grafton County, whereas there is a vacancy, actually there are 3, on the Littleton Police Department in said town, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of a police officer, we do hereby appoint you as a member of the Littleton Police Department of said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having the appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers to perform the duties and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. So if you raise your right hand, I,
Spencer.
I, Benjamin Trapletti.
I, Andrew Eastman.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties
all the duties
incumbent on me as a police officer
incumbent on me as a police officer
of the Littleton Police Department
of the Littleton Police Department
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution and laws
of the Constitution and laws
of the state of New Hampshire,
of the state of New Hampshire.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Chief, do you want to give the guys
Thank you.
So the next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from October 25th, 2021.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve. I'll second it.
Okay?
I do have some corrections. I do have a couple corrections.
Corrections, do you want to,
You want to present the corrections and then do a motion for amended minutes?
Yeah, we opened it up, and now I'm just going to identify.
Okay.
So, Vicki, this is sentence 17 on page 2. I'm sorry. It starts with, it starts with out of the 28 towns, 19 of those towns listed their overtime data, but only 16 of them. The change would be listed call volume data.
Okay.
Okay, that's one change. And then the other one is under administrative, the NCIC new EDA grant, third sentence down. It's 500,000 to 1 million. there's a zero missing, so it's 500,000 to $1 million. That's it, thank you.
Okay, so I will entertain, did you have any, Roger? Any
No.
corrections?
No, I'm ready to move in.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
The second.
All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So the next order of business is a presentation by Heidi Hurley.
Oh, I don't have a presentation. I didn't know I needed a presentation, but I'm here on behalf of the fields in Littleton, and I spoke at the last selectmen's meeting. I'm all for bringing in, other events in town, but when the fields are being ruined due to rain and being played on, I think it's time that the select board make a policy who's paying for the fields to be fixed at this point. Is it the taxpayers? Is it Park and Rec? Where's the money coming from to pay for the field at Granite Park that has been basically destroyed? I don't want to use, it has been ruined actually. And now Norton Pike was used the other day, which was soft, and that has been, and I have pictures, and I don't want to get into this match of, who, what. We need a solution here because those are students' fields to play sports on. And we have another field, Brickyard, that should be utilized to maybe the football league, something like that. We're just at a standstill that we keep on letting them play and the fields are being ruined. I believe Thursday night they're having another match there, a game. So when is winter's coming? When do the fields stop so people can stop playing on them? We have baseball coming up probably in April. I don't think that field will be ready for baseball. I don't know. There's got to be a solution here. And I don't know where to go. We've gone to Park and Rec and basically we were told we were bullies and we harassed people, and that is not true whatsoever. We asked that Norton Pike be used for the girls' playoff game, and they were going to play that morning before a playoff game. And the way they left Granite Park before that, if that had happened at Norton Pike, we would have never been able to play there. So I'm just trying to help with the students, with the sports teams, and I feel like we're getting pushed back when we have an MOU with the school. And I don't know if anybody has had time to look at the fields. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's important to know who's paying to fix these fields. Who's going to be paying?
Good, I mean, very, very good questions, Heidi, and I guess, first of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate the passion and the concern. As a coach, as a mom, as a taxpayer, appreciate that. We also have a lot of people that, feel the same way. One thing that is, the fields are getting used more.
Right.
More.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is, and it has to be a healthy balance. I mean, taxpayers ultimately are paying for the fields, ultimately.
So are we going to continue to allow people to play during a storm and ruin the fields where we probably have $6,000 worth of damage at Granite Park? And where are we, every year we're just gonna have to eat that bill? I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, that's what we'd have to look into, because this is the first year that I think we've really run into this, conflict, if you will, or challenge.
Right.
So I think, you've got the wheels going on it, and I think we've got to look into the cost. We've got to look into, because we want all the players there too, with Parks and Rec, the school, and we want to come up with a collaborative solution.
Correct.
So that it's positive for everybody, because ultimately, if we don't, who will suffer the most?
Right.
And I think that is, it's very, very important.
But is there a time frame that the parks stop usage? I mean, because we're playing football Thursday night at 6 PM at Athor, we're using another field. So we're bouncing around field to field, and, you know, why, I don't know why we're doing that. I mean, because you can use under the lights? I don't know. I mean, we've been compared, the girls have been compared practicing 6 days a week at 100 pounds compared to the football players that we ruin the field. You know, I don't know, when does the parks close for winter to have no usage?
Well, I think they're open all year round, so
For
that
sporting events?
I would imagine kids want to go up there with a.
I understand that, but a
soccer
team
ball.
sporting event.
Well, I don't know of any team sporting events that do the winter. Cross-country skiing, maybe for practice, would be maybe the closest that I would know of. I mean, I don't know, maybe somebody here could help me out with more, but it's pretty much once snow hits, it's more for recreation, sliding and,
Isn't there a policy if there's, who makes the decision to stop an event if it's torrential downpour and not to play on the field?
that's a good question. That's a very good question. And I'm not sure, I would have to defer to maybe a coach.
No, not for a private function, like the Football League that played on that Sunday when we canceled our game for Monday.
Yeah, that
Who's in control of those private parties?
I would have to look into that.
Okay. Because that should have been canceled. I mean, the way the field has been left, you can tell. I mean, have you seen it? Okay.
You know, I think we have a few issues here. We had 3 park directors within a short period of time, which may have led to some of the confusion. There's also the commissioners, who are appointed commissioners. No, they're not appointed.
Yes,
They're
Elected.
appointed. They're elected, that's right. So at one level, you'd assume the commissioners would be making policy in terms of usage. There's also another issue that I thought of after I first saw this, and I wasn't here last time, obviously, at least not here to talk openly and faced. There's a liability issue here that we need to think about. Many years ago, there was a special group of men who played basketball in the high school at night, and they had keys to get in. And I was on the board, and an issue occurred in Lisbon. They had a men's basketball league, and some guy jumped up to the net and fell, broke his leg. And all of a sudden, the school district had a liability issue. And that posed the question to us and all the other towns around here that allowed adults at night to have their own keys to get into the gym. And our insurance company said, you can't have them in there. And now they don't go, no one has keys to get in anyway, but back then it was a little bit looser. So there was no policy. It was just one of those kind of loose things, and I think this may be the same thing, where we have an outside group who may have a perfect right to be here to use, but obviously scheduling's an issue, and prioritization of timing and usage is an issue. And liability may be an issue as well, because I remember the insurance company was pretty adamant that they didn't want anybody's, other than school, people using the gym. So that's kind of where I think it's at.
Of course, that's more specific to the school,
school.
though.
It
where
is,
These are
right.
fields.
Right, but the
yeah.
liability issue,
But the people who want to use the fields have to provide a liability certificate.
I think maybe, yeah, I think maybe.
Every single one of my players that plays this year, I have a waiver form that they've all signed, releasing
Okay.
them.
So that answers that
But-
question.
Yeah.
But can I say something? Littleton Babe Ruth has to have a liability insurance. The youth soccer has to have a liability insurance of $1 million. Both of those have to have $1 million. So anybody that plays on the field that are private has to have a liability insurance. So why do they have to have one and they don't?
Is it part of the school?
No, it's not. They're a league. So that's something you may want to look into, because they have to have it.
When I spoke with Chris.
Oh, you know what, we need first
I'm
names.
sorry, I'm
That's all
Andrew
right.
Harper. I'm Andrew Harper, sorry. When I first spoke with Chris Wilkins last year about, in September of 2020, about bringing this league into Littleton, he was all for it. And one of the first things that he talked about was getting us under their insurance through that. But with the change of directors that happened, it kind of fell through the cracks, and our season kind of already started. So I was told to just roll with the waivers for this year. And next year that we would get into something a little bit more formal with the rec of that we're on their insurance, and somebody like me or somebody would be like the head of that. And then in order to play, you have to fill out this certain waiver, and we would actually be like on the insurance of the rec. That's something that we already plan to look into in this off season. So.
Okay.
So Littleton Babe Ruth and Littleton Youth Soccer could be on the Park and Rec liability insurance then?
Guess we'd have to look into that. I don't know.
No.
That'd be a good question.
No, I just want to be rephrased. They would not be on the towns. What he would get is a certificate of insurance that may be listed at $1 million. You could get that from a local agent for $100, $150. So it's not prohibitive. And in that, you list the town as being covered under your liability. So you're not under the town, you have your own, and you list the town with that, and it's a very nominal expense.
Because they're public fields for the taxpayers, if Milton and I decided to go up there and do a little baseball, that's legal. I mean, we can go up and play.
Anybody can. As
Anybody
long as
can.
they're not on there dusk to dawn, whatever the rules are, anybody can show up on any given.
Without an
weekend.
insurance policy.
No, without insurance policy, without organization, without anything. They want to do a pickup football, pickup lacrosse, pickup soccer. That's what your fields are for.
But what if they're booked with the school for a sporting event? Who controls that?
Right, and that's a good point, Heidi. I think it's that coordination of scheduling. Yeah, and who would have known? I mean, thankfully, the girls went as far as they did this year.
But if we didn't come forward to those things and ask, we sat out in the parking lot and we knew a half an hour before that meeting that the field was going to be moved to Remick. But nobody wanted us to know that. They brought us in and we were called names by somebody, and that was it. And never got to defend ourselves or anything. And I'm not here to, disrespect Park and Rec. Bring whoever you want in. I'm supportive of it. But we need to come up with a solution when somebody, a private facility or a private team comes in and uses our town fields and ruins it. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it is ruined. Remick Park and part of Norton down the middle is going to take a little bit to fix. Who's responsible for fixing that? The town. Right, you're responsible, but the town and the taxpayers pay you, but where's the money going?
Fixing for them.
Right.
I'm sorry?
The schools don't pay, and we're responsible for fixing for them.
Wait a second, a lot of school parents,
It's a difference. You don't pay a fee to the town. I'm not arguing with you.
we have
but-
for many years, but we swapped Daisy Bronson for Park and Rec to use. There's a lot of things going on that you're not aware of.
But the payments aren't any different than they didn't make the same payments. So I
Okay,
don't
and how
have
much does-
$6,000 from you to fix the soccer field after the league. I'm not arguing with you.
I can get $6,000 from
I'm not
businesses
asking
right now
that, but if
fix
it's
the
apples
field.
to apples, I'm not arguing. If it's apples to apples, then everybody should be paying a fee. The taxpayer
Correct.
should not be
We
paying
have
for the school.
Right, the school has always paid a fee until recently.
Yeah.
Because there was something with the buildings with Park and Rec. I don't know what it is. I don't know. How much does the football league bring in for the town?
I think, Heidi, before we get into all of the minutia of that, and you're asking some awesome questions. You really are, but I think what we've got to do is kind of take a bigger look. The more people we have to come to town, the more we're going to see this and opportunities for people like the flag football, which is exciting to have
It is
people.
exciting, and I know people that play on it, But when you allow something to happen with the weather conditions the way it was that day, and now look at Remick Park,
The fields
I
will be
mean,
ready. The
It's,
fields will be ready, they're part of the maintenance.
right, so we'll,
but who is paying for that?
The same people who were paying for the soccer field repairs. The taxpayers.
All in
The
the
soccer
maintenance.
field repairs, there's nothing to be repaired on the soccer field. What is to be repaired?
That's your opinion, ma'am, and I don't want to get into that because your view of the damage versus not is a perception. And I'm not gonna argue that.
So what-
That's your personal
Would you like to see
opinion.
pictures of the soccer game before football played?
Ma'am, it's your personal opinion.
But I have
You're-
pictures.
You're not an engineer, you're not a professional to go
Neither
out
are
and do the
you.
analysis. I
so
know the people
let's,
we deal with. ma'am.
let's kind of wrap this up. Heidi, you do bring up some good points, and we're not arguing with that. We're not saying that the damage, I mean, when it rains and pours and people are out on the field, it can cause some damage. I think what we've got to do at our end, just do a little bit more research, come up with some more coordination, and you certainly have got the ball going, and we thank you for that. Now we can take a look at it and see, what are we gonna do if we have like 15 people come in next year that are an additional because they wanna come play on the field? We do have to address it, and we have to coordinate, so.
Yes, my
What's your
name is
first-
Sandy Porter, and I've been a youth sports coach for a number of years, and I've also coached the middle school soccer team this year. And I know for a fact that Littleton Youth Soccer pays a fee to rent Apthorpe and Norton. And I don't know about paying for Remick Park by the high school. And this has nothing to do with who uses what field and when. But there should be fields that are off limits for some things at different times of the year. And one of them is definitely that varsity soccer field. And I know for a fact that the varsity soccer coach does not practice on that field when it gets the least bit wet because of poor drainage. And that is a big repair job right now that happened. And that field should not have been used, regardless of soccer. Because now it has to get ready for next baseball season. And quite honestly, as a member of the community, I think it's embarrassing when other teams come to play Littleton and they see the quality of the fields we have. My boys had to play on Apthorpe this year, and that's because that's where they've always been playing. It's not a soccer field because it's a softball field. We need better and more fields for people to use, and some of them should not be used by certain people at certain times of the year because of the damage that it can do. Or the fields need to just be made much better. This is kind of an embarrassment to this town, to be perfectly honest with you. The amount of fields at all the other schools that I go to are tremendous. This town does not have enough green grass for an urban society. For even a rural society, this does not have enough green grass. We need better, more fields. So that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Sandy. You had your hand up.
My name's Emily.
What is it?
Emily
Emily?
Leveroni.
Oh.
So I think the issue here is if the school needs their own fields, they need to raise the money to buy their own fields. As a taxpayer, I already give the school hours and hours weekly for them to use it, that myself and other members of the community cannot use it. And now they're asking us to limit it altogether so that we can't use the fields at all.
I'd like to say something on that. For years, though, the school did pay the town for the fields, and there was an agreement somehow, an MOU was made that it was a swap or something. I don't know the correct,
We'll look into that.
yeah. So I don't know, the school has always paid until a couple of years
But
ago.
there's no payment now.
There's no payment now, but there should be, absolutely. There's an $18 million budget up at that school. They should be paying something. But Park and Rec uses the building in the summertime for their rec program because of the green building being condemned. So I don't know what is going on, things like that. I really don't, to be honest.
We will do more research.
So the school has paid for many years.
But
Well, we will do some more research unless somebody has something new information. We will go with this.
I guess, say?
Sure.
My name's Steve Bromley, and is there a way to find out what's it gonna cost? And Patrick, maybe you know, do you need to put more, some new sod down, reseed it? Is it going, it probably won't grow this spring, it'll probably
So
be.
we just had our fertilizer person here today, and put 4 bags down, and I rolled it today, and I'll be putting 2 more bags down tomorrow, and I'll be rolling it again tomorrow. And that has happened, it's done, and football paid for it,
Yeah.
so.
And Norton Pike probably the same thing.
I do have enough to do Norton. Abthorpe is also, Littleton use soccer, because we're going east to west, and we have junior high soccer going north to south. So, in 3 different directions.
I don't mind other people using the fields as long as,
Right.
as they don't get ruined.
Right.
That's all.
basically, so.
That's all we're asking, that there's some common sense when there's a school not to play, and put a sign the park is closed, and contact that party, that's all.
All right, are you guys okay with, we'll do some
Yeah,
research and find out?
Thank you very much.
Rudy?
Yeah, I just wanna enlighten some people that they're talking about sports and stuff like that. In regard to soccer, I was a soccer player for 20 years. The last 2 words that comes to the ref. The ref, it tells the kids they can play soccer, or the field is inadequate to play whatever sports they're supposed to play. The ref is responsible, and he's got the last 2 words. He checks the field, he sees a lot of water, stuff like that. He's got a soccer ball, that soccer ball doesn't bounce. Okay, we don't play today. Next time. The ref is responsible for the kids to play any sports. He's got the last 2 words. I said as a sportsman.
Okay, thank you, Rudy, for
It's
sharing
good to
that.
know.
So I don't think there's anything we have to vote on. We do appreciate this discussion and appreciate the thoughts, the ideas, and then we'll move forward,
Yeah.
see what we can do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next order of business is town manager updates, administrative purchase of the Murrow property for the River District.
Yeah, well, the background, you know better than me. Back in January of 2019, the town entered into a lease purchase agreement with Ronald V. Murrow with a expiration of 12/31/21 for acquiring the property. There have been some unfortunate significant delays in that process through Yellow Book appraisal, and we went around and what have you. We finally got all of
We
that.
want to make sure if there's another conversation that it could be go, because we can't hear. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. So there's a deadline of December 31st, 2021 for the town to acquire the property. And thankfully, through the recommendation of Mike Welch from NCIC, I reached out to Walter Mitchell to go ahead and start the closing process. And in that process came up with a timeline and some dates that unfortunately didn't fit with the 12/31 date. Because it would require a town vote on some additional funding that's a shortfall, and that would have to be January 8th. So what I was able to do, I met with Mr. Murrow on Friday, and he asked, if there might be the possibility of doing the closing before the 31st of December, but all of those funds be held in escrow, so that if the vote on the 8th didn't support the additional $120,000, then the closing was null and void, and the escrow funds would come back to the town, and then he would have his property and could step back at some other point in time if he wanted to. He's very amenable to that, because that's what his concern with. We've advertised, because I couldn't wait for tonight, but to meet the public deadlines, I've gone ahead and taken the chance of advertising for a public meeting November 15th, which would be the first one dealing strictly with this, where your town is dealing with the budget and what all is involved. The issue is, the purchase price is $450. The town, through a warrant article, voted $175, and then there's $155 in donations, so that comes to $330. So we're $120 short, and that would have to come out of the general fund. And
You're talking in $100,000.
Pardon?
You're talking about hundreds of dollars.
120.
Thank you. 1,000.
Yes, 120,000. Yes, sir. The good news is we already have a grant for 200,000,
Right.
but it's a reimbursable. So if it voted on the 8th, we'd be able to apply to get the 120 back. So I mean, it would not impact us other than maybe December, January of escrowing the funds.
So we have to spend it to get it back.
Yeah, which is like, to be honest, 99% of the grants. You spend, you submit your invoices, they make sure that you spend it on the right things, you did what you needed to do. So, Mr. Mitchell told me that tonight, as the first step, would be a recommendation that I've written for you as a motion for the board to exercise the option for the purchase of the Murrow property for $450,000, tax map 84 lot 11, pending the approval of the state of New Hampshire grant application, because we did have to amend the application because of the yellow book and the differences in appraisals. With or without that, we've got the $200,000 grant that's already been awarded, so you could at least accomplish the purchase. It may have effect in other phases on there, but at least you could get the land purchased. So your first motion would be basically to authorize going forward with that purchase. The second motion requests the town attorney to proceed with petitioning the Superior Court to hold a special town meeting. Actually, I need to clarify in there, the first session would be November 15th, and then there would be a public meeting. Let me change my date. I had 10 in there. It's 11. And then a town vote on January 8th, not 7th. My mistake there, I apologize. And as I told you, we've advertised for the session on the 15th, because tonight we would miss the deadline, and I'd rather take the risk of advertising than pushing this back further into that process. And so we get the first motion, that means you're okay with going through with the purchase. The second motion will start at the process then, where the citizens have their first session, they talk about the budget, they get explained where the 20 is coming from and how it can be reimbursed. A third meeting is additional information and for people to feel that out, and then the 8th would be your deliberative session where they would vote. I spoke with Walter and Mr. Murrow today. Mr. Murrow was very amicable, of being able to get that done by the 31st, which is the deadline in the contract. And Walter believes that the worst risk to the town is from December 31st to January 8th of just escrowing $120,000, that if the town didn't vote on the 8th to approve it, it comes right back to us. If they did, we go forward with the purchase would be done, we go ahead and disperse the escrow, and then we apply back to the grant money to get our 120 back, and so then everything would be as is. And then the last thing I do have to bring back to you, and I found that out today, and we'll do that on December 13th, is that there's $155,000 of private donations, and so you just have to accept them in terms of that. And then I did put down here, the third item is that there's a public meeting on the 15th. So tonight, in order to move it forward, if you're comfortable with what I'm working with in terms of Mr. Murrow and Walter to do everything we can to accommodate Mr. Murrow on December 31st, would be a motion on the first step, and then if that passes, then a motion on the second step, which starts the timeline for the public sessions. Any other questions?
Your dates, the 10th and the 7th are actually correct, because
Oh,
forgot to update this when we changed everything.
all right. The advertisement has the right dates, okay? I apologize on that, but yeah, I have it on here as the 10th and the, 7th, but thank you, Vicki.
It's the 7th.
The 10th and the 7th, yeah.
Questions?
Well, I know the town voted unanimously to buy this piece of property.
Yes, and you raised 175 towards that?
Yep.
We got the 155 in private, that gets us to the 330. The 120, that's the difference.
And it seems like if we have to expend 120,000 just for a short term and get it back to make this happen, I could make the motion that we go forward.
And if
as far
it
as-
didn't pass on the 8th, you're gonna get it back anyway,
Yep.
because
Yep.
then there's no closing. So
Right.
there's kind of not a down payment.
And John Hennessy's here, who's been extremely instrumental in getting us to this point. So, John, if you,
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little more history to this. So the select board put this warrant article on the warrant in 2020. As you mentioned, Roger, it was voted by a wide margin in favor
Yeah.
for the 175. Nothing has changed to change any of the expenditure from the town's side of it. So the taxpayers will still spend 175. And what I understand, this is a really common, town pays the bills up front and gets reimbursed by the grants that have already been approved. So really nothing has changed except our attorney, in taking another look at this, felt the language wasn't technically exactly the way they wanted it to be in the warrant to allow us to do the reimbursement that we usually do. So we have to go through these extra steps according to the attorney, and I just want to make sure that it's clear to the taxpayers that nothing has changed other than just a slight legal interpretation on the authority of what's to do. In the warrant article, the town promised we'd get at least a 2-to-1 match on the 175,000 that the taxpayers would put in. We got a 3-for-1 match, and then the town subsequently went out and got another $600,000 at no cost to the taxpayer. So it's now a 7-to-1 match. We're gonna get a $1.4 million town improvement for $175,000. So it's a lot of steps we have to go through now, unfortunately, and it could be potentially confusing to the taxpayer, but really nothing has changed coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. We're gonna get even more than they authorized for it. So we can go through the process, but, trying to minimize the confusion would be excellent.
it's great. Thank you, John. Rudy?
Yeah, to this 175,000 is gonna be a warrant article.
It already was last year.
It was last year. We not bought our property yet,
No,
okay? This year is gonna be again in a warrant articles.
No.
It won't.
nope. The rest of it's coming through a grant
It's
and
co-
private donations.
It's gonna come to the, $200,000 a grant, but we can spend that $200,000, more important things that Murrow's property over there.
The 120,000 that's coming out is going right back in once the grant gets here. So it's gonna be no cost to the town.
Rudy, the 200,000 is for purchase.
I understand.
Okay,
that.
so, yeah.
But if you don't purchase that, you got the $200,000.
No.
And you spend it, no, you can
If we,
spend
if we
it.
don't, if we don't buy the land, we don't get the 200,000, the state will take it back.
It's only
It's
for
not
that.
like, it's not sitting there just saying, here, do what you want. It's specifically to purchasing the land. So
With
then
the
once we,
$200,000, you process the land, right?
we would
Just
pur-
the land.
yeah, we would purchase it and then submit the 120 to them out of the 200 and they'll send that back to the town.
When you got the land for 20, because if I don't talk over here, I'm gonna talk on a deliberative session.
Yeah.
And you know what?
And you'll be able to do that on
You know.
January, December
What I'm trying
7th.
to say, it's not just
Yeah.
that $200,000 that you buy the land. But whatever you gotta spend on it to make it accessible to the people to park there. Because if I remember correctly, I talked with one of you guys, I don't mention no names, that if they start to dig on a particular piece of property, they're gonna find a lot of garbage under there. That's true. I don't mention no names.
I know, but right now is the purchase and then there's a phase 2 that will come where that assessment is done. You know, there's a concept planned out there. We're actually going for a new grant in January where some of this is being incorporated in. Welcome center and expansions, potential amphitheater, some of the ideas that people had out there. So that would be phase 2, but if we don't do the purchase, then there's no phase 2.
But the taxpayer, they're gonna be clean, right, according to,
On the purchase,
an approach.
you've already voted through the warrant 175, so that already committed. You're loaning or advancing the 120, but you will get it back.
So we're looking for
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Rudy, for your question.
Yeah.
All right, so we're looking for a motion, the first one, because we should do them separately.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
So for the Board of Selectmen to exercise the option for the purchase of the Murrow property at a total purchase price of $450,000, tax map 84 lot 11 pending final approval from the state of New Hampshire grant application.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, good, thank you. So the second motion we need to have is the Board of Selectmen requests the town's attorney to proceed with the petitioning the Superior Court to hold a special town meeting, which is the first session on December 10th, and a special town meeting, second session for the public vote on January 7th, 2022, to allow the voters to approve the appropriation of an additional $120,000 to be added to private donations in the amount approved at the March 2020 annual town meeting for a total purchase price of $450,000, which additional sum will be repaid to the town in 2022 by an already approved reimbursement grant.
I'll make the motion.
Okay?
I'll second it.
All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Thank you. So Walter, you'll make sure Walter moves ahead on
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah. In fact, he checked with me today, and I told him that I had taken the risk of doing the advertising so we can stay online with the public hearing.
Okay.
So we're all set.
All right,
Good.
good, thank you.
Moving forward.
So the next order of business is the Cottage Street Railroad signs.
Yes, the last meeting, you know, there had been a lot of discussion in reference to the signage. I was asked to go back to New Hampshire DOT, and I kind of cut and pasted their responses. So the issues, you know, had to do with like the full brackets and then the poles. And this is their response. Please accept the following response to the town of Littleton's inquiring about the Cottage Street Railroad structure and signage. Could the current hardware be left and becomes the town liability and responsibility? That was the first question I was asked to get to them. Current hardware over the roadway shall not be left in place as it's no longer a required warning device for roadway users and would serve to be confusing and extraneous, as well as presents a possible safety and liability issue due to its age. I will forward this in particular inquiry to Bill Lambert, the administrator of New Hampshire Bureau of Traffic. He has been involved in the reviewing of the structure in the past and may be able to more appropriately articulate the concerns that the state has with the structure remaining over the roadway, even after the removal of the roadway warning and devices. Defer to Bill on these things related to highway signage and prevailing roadway. So their initial response and indication back is that they don't intend
They don't want the liability.
to leave them up there, you know, in terms of that. If Bill has any federal or state citations relative to the full removal of the overhead structure, says as this, the state will ask them to share. The second question, could the support poles be left in place as the initial foundation support for new signage when the town would propose a concept? The support poles, the upright poles only, could be considered to be left in place, but once all the components are removed, the poles may be rather unsightly and limited into their practical reusable capacity. The existing upright poles may not be as functional and aesthetically pleasing and as welcoming as the town might desire. Thus, the suggestion to totally remove and leave the foundation only. Foundation meaning the base where new
Concrete.
poles could come from. So, passing on the message from the state that the potential of the two poles could be up, they think there's gonna be some aesthetic concerns because of the way they're natured and designed now to cover the crossing gates and, and the bar in front of that. And maybe at some future pole, could be lighter weight, a little more attractive, and be designed to hold signage, not railroad crossing. But at least right now, I mean, the state is pretty much indicating that they're gonna take the structure down, that there may be a window on the additional poles, but it's not their recommendation.
Have they given you a date as to when those are gonna be removed?
It was more for me to come back and advise you on the answer, and then I can do that as a follow-up, just in the sense if I knew there was some additional conversation or questions that came up.
One of the things I see is if they were to leave the uprights, you're talking a 12, 14-foot upright, you're not gonna put signage at the top of it. People won't see it.
If they won't, we would have to put the signage up.
Right, what I'm saying is
Yeah.
if we put signage up there, people won't see it.
I mean,
Needs to be eye level, so.
the location is ideal,
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the foundation, and I know it sounds easy to say, oh, those things are up there and we could put these signs
Yeah.
up, but it may not be aesthetically and is what you want in reference to your gateway and coming in, and Littleton one side, Anthorpe on the other, which is in terms of that destination. And so, again, it's really gonna be a DOT call. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their equipment, and so they'll make that decision. And I can get back to them after the meeting and see if there's a change on the full apparatus, and if not, then just go back and say, yeah, there was some discussion on the poles. We recognize they may not be perfect or what have you, and for them then to give me what would be a final drop dead date, in the sense that they're gonna make a decision with or without us, and advise you of that.
I wonder if it'd be worth it to have Art Ty take a look at that, where he does a lot of our signs.
Right.
And he's an expert in that area, and maybe he could suggest, I hate to have them taken down if then we're gonna have to erect something else which will cost us more money. But if there was something that we could, if he could look at it and say, you know what, if they will leave them here, we could make this work. Or no, it wouldn't make sense.
The other one that you probably want to look at it is Wilco. They're the ones that made the sign on the main street for the River District.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that those uprights are just bolted on top of the foundation. So if they leave us the bolts, Wilco could probably fabricate something that was fairly attractive to put some signage on.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So do you need anything as far as from us, Jim, as far as a vote?
Well, I mean, based on your consensus, I'll reach out to the mayor, Mr. Ty. And
He'll have some wisdom. for
Yeah,
us,
no, definitely. I mean, he's a pleasant character to be able to work with and communicate with. And so I can reach out to him, at least from an artistic standpoint, go out and get some idea before I necessarily respond to the DOT. So maybe if his schedule can do that, that could get me some kind of report. Maybe it's something could send back that could plant those seeds of those eyes and they see something different. But recognizing we could get an answer back that we've made the decision that we'll leave you the bases, but we're taking it down. But I'll follow that through, and I get the consensus. I don't think you have to make a vote on that. I hear you loud and clear.
All right, good. Well, thank you. Let's see. So the Bank of New Hampshire town lease update.
Yes, I think we're getting close. There were two clauses. I know the bank reached out to the board chair, and I was able to follow up. And one had to do with a non-appropriation clause, and I think that has to do with New Hampshire law and the board being able to tie into certain length lease and what have you. And I think the bank was concerned about the non-appropriation clause because there's a thought of, well, what if people don't appropriate the funds? And it's not just their concern, it's ours, where we go in terms of that. But I got answers back on that, and if I'm reading this correctly, it sounds like you all have the right to appropriate the funds as long as it's a 2-to-3 majority. That it didn't go, if I'm reading this correctly, so therefore we wouldn't risk the voters in March saying we're not gonna pay for a lease at the bank, and then we say, oh my God, where does town hall go? So, in reading it, I mean, the attorney is saying the no appropriation clause needs to stay in there, but that it gives you the authority to make the vote. And so that may take a comfort level from the bank to not be concerned that somehow from PR or whatever it is, that there could be a non-vote. And there was also a question about hazmat language was taken out because the town has no insurance for covering for hazmat. And I think the bank was concerned about having that in. I think there was a comment made that there were some paint cans or something like that that were stored. And so I've asked Eric Oliver to do a complete inspection of the second floor to make sure that we don't have anything on that floor, you know, that would be considered hazardous. And we'll be able to advise Laura on that. And so that may or may not be an issue. The only concern we have, I guess, from the bank or the town standpoint, is I don't know what the folks are storing on the third floor.
Well, I think that would be between the bank
But
and
if
the
they're,
tenant, right.
but if they impacted us,
Right.
and then we didn't have some clause in there that covered us based on the other tenant, but I, based on my answer back to Laura, that we could assure to it that we had nothing in there, and if our insurance isn't going to cover us anyway, then maybe that's a non-issue, and I can get that clarified. But I just got this today, so it was just an opportunity to update. So the appropriation clause appears to be should not be a controversial issue, especially if you all get to make that call. I can't see, I'm not guessing your votes, but I can't see you
Throwing us out in the
not
street.
renewing it, being in the building, right?
Yeah.
And then I can just check with Laura then, just to make sure, you know, because it's the bank wanted a hazmat clause, and we were the ones that were taking it out because we have no coverage for it.
Right.
So if they want it in, just to assure them that if we put something up there, you know, it's our liability. Well, if we're not going to put something up there, I'm not sure it's a problem in having that clause in there in terms of that, because we won't violate the clause. So I can get that clarified tomorrow, but we ended up getting
I think
these like
that's
today.
fairly standard in like
Okay.
leases like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it does appear that the no appropriation will stay, and that, in talking with Laura, then we may be able to counter back to the town's legal representative that, I'll get that verified tomorrow, just so I'm not overstepping that we could remove the hazmat as a concern, and that if they understand that the non-appropriation clause gives you all the ability to appropriate the funds in terms of there, then maybe there's a comfort level that we don't have to wait till March and go to a vote in reference to a 5-year lease. This could be something that could be done, if that's the case, could be done in December, so it would go into effect January 1st, which is what was the anticipated lease time. So I'll have an answer back to you on December 13th,
Okay,
and hopefully it will be a vote.
okay,
Okay.
good. So just so I'm clear, the hazmat clause will still stay in the lease because we won't have any hazardous
Yeah,
material.
if the bank wants it in, I mean, my comment to Laura is we wouldn't have an issue with it because
We
we're
don't
not
have
storing
any,
anything
okay.
hazmat, and so therefore, if that gives the bank some assurity that we didn't do that, then
Okay,
I mean, I don't see that being a liability to us.
all right, and then the non-appropriations, you'll get back
That-
to us
yeah,
at 2/3.
yeah. But it
Okay.
does look like that'll have to stay, but it should be able to give them a comfort level.
Okay,
Jim, are they looking for a 5-year lease?
It's a 5-year lease, which is, I didn't change any of that because of kind of what came out of our first meeting, so I took a step back and I didn't want to get
Yeah.
the messenger shot. But my understanding is, and I'll verify with Laura, because we just addressed these two questions, but my belief is that there is a clause in there that with a majority vote with a time frame, you do have what could trigger an opt-out. So if you,
An opt-out.
if you were at some point to explore some other opportunity or some other issues in terms of there, but let me get that clarified, and we'll have every loose end tied up on December 13th. So
Okay.
know
That would
that
be a key
process.
provision.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. So the next order of business is the fund balance reserve to lower the town tax rate.
I thought we had already agreed. to what
No,
we were gonna do.
we've had it on a couple of meetings.
So in the past, when funds permitted, the Board of Selectmen would authorize unspent reserve funds to be used to offset the following year's tax rate. So we would be looking at a potential of,
Yeah,
the
what you
sur-
got in here is the 2020, but we did get the, I think within the last week, if you will flip through, you'll get the 2021, which is now the numbers we're dealing with. And it kind of gives you the tax rate and whatever, and it does show that our amount retained had gone from 500
it's
and
600,
25 to
682?
682, so we went from 2.32 to 2.94. And again, you know, there's no hard rule. I mean, there's recommendations, as you've said, Milt. I mean, the state does recommendations on percentages based on, you know, just kind of general history in towns and whatever across from there. But my understanding is, and I'm going to go by rough numbers now, that $100,000 equates to about 13 cents.
Right. So we're looking, we've got 7 weeks left to this year,
But
approximately.
yeah, but
We're looking at
this
the-
will be the unreserved number that you need to decide from.
Right, and it's within this 7-week period that we could either give all of them the money that we have set aside, so to speak, back to the taxpayers, or a portion of it. So if we only give a portion of it back, what happens to the balance?
It stays in your unfunded
stays
reserves.
in
That's,
unfunded
yeah, that's your
reserves.
savings
That's
account.
what I thought.
You're technically, think of it as this is your savings account. And so you're pulling money out of the savings account to put toward the
And
tax.
next year,
of the
we'll
balance.
have 2.3% versus the 5% that the state recommends.
It would all depend on what you took out
Depending
this
on
year.
what we took out.
And then as the budget's done,
All right,
surplus and over. So that number can change, just like in 20.
right.
We were dealing with the 500. In 2021, it went to 68. I
Right.
mean, we're still below the 5% that the state recommends. But, you know, if the difference between the two is like 100, I thought I have a printout on that. Let me,
Well, that's right.
yeah, but there's a different, oh, I got it. Yeah, sorry. The increase was $157,895. Now, I don't know if you gave that increase back, if that kind of puts us back to 5.32 because it's a percentage of the budget. But just using what we started out with to where we're at, I mean, if you're considering it there as a number, and I will double check with Lori, but I don't think we have 7 weeks. I think this is like something the DRA
Yeah.
needs in reference to finalizing this tax rate.
Okay.
Because
So what would that equate out
Well, no,
to
I
per
mean-
thousand, like 13 cents?
13
Yeah.
cents. So if you had a $300,000 house, so divide it by 1,000, it gives you 300. So
Right.
300 by 0.13 cents would be that person's break.
Right, but in terms of the fiscal year, we're talking December 31st, not next,
Right.
not March or
Yeah.
next June. Right, okay. That was only my question.
Yeah, let me just do a quick calculation.
The reason for hanging
It would
on
be,
to that money,
in that case there, it would be a $39 tax break to the
okay,
resident.
That's
Or
always a
versus-
positive thing to do.
it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the reverse side is, you know, we've got some wear and tear on some things that haven't been taken
Well, that's why I raised
care
the
of, and
question
the
about
reserve
the-
sometimes is your safety net.
Right, that's why I raised the question about the number of weeks left in this fiscal
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But we
But-
can't do it with unencumbered funds right
No,
now
no,
until
this
December.
is the number that the state is giving us, so
Right.
the decision has to come out of that.
Right,
Yes, I know what you're saying, Mel. We could end up finishing this year and having some additional unencumbered, but right now that's not being factored in because
Right.
the state can't predict
right,
how we're gonna end up. That would be factored into next year's.
right.
a sheet. And so $100,000 equates, what did I say, $39. And yeah, any cut is good, we feel that.
That's
But
right.
there's a time when you look, is the 39 collectively spread out? And this is philosophical, it's not a pro or con. Since we're not at the minimum, do we kind of hold on to be safe? While I will tell you it's a separate issue because the funding comes from the wastewater treatment plant, but after last Thursday's budget meeting, I got back to the office and had a phone call, and the very next day they sent me a 4-page letter of some very significant deficiencies and
At the treatment.
non-compliance, the wastewater treatment plant, that they want to report back by May 20th. Now that fund doesn't come out of here,
Well, what's your
but it could
recommendation?
impact.
What's
Well,
your recommendation to us?
the conservative guy as a manager, I say leave it in there because you're not at 5%, but recognizing where you're at, if you wanted to do 157,895, that takes your 682,972 back to the 520,077.
I don't think we've ever been at 5%. have
Oh,
we?
we've never been.
No.
No, we purposely don't put a 5%. We think that's.
Yeah, no, and it's a
unrealistic.
philosophy. It's a range. I mean,
Right.
I reached a point down there where I had a 65% because they'd been on the verge of bankruptcy when I got there, and I just wanted to make sure I had a heck of a cushion,
Yeah.
so they didn't go through there. All right, so yeah, but you can also hold on to too much of the people's money. All right, I mean, I get that,
Right.
but minimums aren't necessarily what they define it that. But if you, oh God, you're gonna have to give me a second.
We're doing it.
You got cramps, huh?
I did a Mount Washington yesterday, and I should have never done it.
We don't need your Stacy. Just get over it.
I honestly
Just get
thought
over
at
it.
5:30 when it was getting dark and I didn't know where the end was, I was gonna be one of those emergency rescues.
Do we need an emergency vehicle here?
Yeah.
All right, it's out, so I just wanted to not freak out. But no, I mean, if you're historically have given back, okay, this might be 13, half of that, so it could be 20 cents. So it could maybe end up being $40, $45
What, the 157?
on a $300,000.
157?
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's more goodwill, isn't
Yeah,
it?
It's good to do
Yeah.
it. It's good to do it.
Yeah,
You gonna make the motion?
yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Give us the exact number. That
Yeah,
1,000. Yeah, give 1,000 back. 157,895.
back. I make the motion that we give 157,895 back.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Super. Merry Christmas. The next order of business is the Opera House, deciding where the vendor trucks can park. And Adam has done a really good job too, as far as resuscitating the Arts Commission and, bringing the Opera House back to life and getting very creative. I know you have a team, but you're at the helm. And so he's here tonight to share, for the first Friday event. It was so successful that they want to do one on December 3rd. Oh.
Yeah,
Is there anything you want to share with that?
sure. Yeah,
Adam?
Adam Rezick, Opera House Manager, Cultural Arts Coordinator. We're doing another First Friday, a winter edition on the holiday market. It's going to be kind of a one-off. We're not going to be doing it for 3 months in a row like we did in the summer. But one of the things we wanted to do is have some food vendors set up. This time around, we're thinking probably going to all have to be on Main Street just because it's going to be a lot colder. And if we consolidate everything on one smaller area, that being Main Street, it'd be a lot easier to get foot traffic and people around to everything. So my thought was we could block off some parking spots on Main Street, put food trucks there, or food vendors that are kind of facing out with the sidewalks, so that passersby can stop by and pick up some finger food or to-go stuff. What we experienced in the summer First Fridays was that there were so many people here that they couldn't find a place to sit down at any of the restaurants in town. More of as a courtesy, I want to bring it up to you guys just in case there's any sort of perceivable pushback of like, oh, why are we bringing in outside food vendors when there's so many perfectly good restaurants in town? The idea is that it's in response to the fact that there were too many people to service in the summers. So we just kind of want to create some more options for people for smaller grab-and-go bites. My thought was Main Street, that was kind of our first choice. Other alternatives I threw out there were either the Opera's parking lot, which is less ideal because you could cross the street, or the parking lot up by Mascoma Bank, or alternatively closing Porter Street again, which I'm not sure that's going to be in the cards for the size that we're expecting for December 1st Friday, but it was another alternative. Wanted to run those options by you folks, see what you thought about all that, and hopefully get your blessing for any and all of them, and then trust us to go
How
forward.
how many food trucks?
Well,
Yeah, are you looking at?
we were hoping for 2 plus Liddy's Meats from Lindenville. One of the food trucks is going to be closed down for the season, so it looks like it would be 1 food truck likely, which would be Reckless, and then Liddy's Meats from Lindenville. I think it would probably, as of right now, I think it's just those 2 that seem like the most popular right now. I don't expect a whole lot of change because it's only a month away, but it's still a month away, so we could be surprised.
And it's just strictly food, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Reckless is just
no,
food truck,
okay,
not beer truck.
all right.
Yeah.
Everybody brings their own in a cup.
Yeah, thermos. I
We're
would.
gonna have another leg problem in a minute.
Yeah. I'd be concerned, I mean, we have our 2 chiefs here, as far as safety issues on Main Street. I think having them consolidated is a good idea, but, blocking off safety issues, I'd rather defer.
I was just gonna ask Caitlin too, is that the night of the Polar Express event? So we already got some going on.
All night.
I think the parade is Saturday.
Yeah.
So I mean, there could be a little bit
Well,
of.
no, the parade is the 27th, which is after
I
Thanksgiving.
no. I think that's, we just add that to the schedule probably.
And then the Beatles are playing at the Opera House on Saturday before.
That's right.
Adam, I appreciate the feedback that you've given to us, but I would be uncomfortable voting on, we shouldn't get down to this level.
Okay. It was more of a
Clearly,
concern of if there would be an issue with being a restaurant.
police chief and the town manager and the fire chief really.
What we brought it in for, Milt, to be honest, was the little bit of the politics, if there was some problem with the community bringing in the trucks.
Right.
We did not run into an experience during the summer, because even I ate at several of the restaurants, and I asked, did these food trucks hurt you? And they said, absolutely not, because it's a different kind of clientele.
Right.
And again, not everybody could get in and seat, so sometimes the food truck helped. So it was almost a compliment, but I think Paul's probably got more experience than anybody in terms of there, and he just felt it might be cautious, or at least just to bring that.
The board needs to authorize the usage of the spots. We're gonna shut them down, we're not gonna charge a permitting fee, which makes sense. We need to say, yes, go ahead and do it. I'll coordinate with Adam as far as where he wants to put them. It's not a safety concern from my perspective, because they're gonna be facing the sidewalk. And it's no different than any other box truck being pulled in.
We just kind of want to make philosophically you want to goes with it.
However, I just realized that we don't have a chamber representative here, but traditionally, and I'm just putting this in your mind, and we'll come back with a proposal in December, first meeting in December, to bag the meters as well, which traditionally the board has done for several years now, at the end of, like a week before Christmas and a week after.
Mr. Hadlock sponsored it last year.
Right, so we'll seek a sponsor and we'll do all of that, but I would say from my perspective, as long as he coordinates with me, if you authorize him to take up some parking spots, we'll make it happen.
So which side of the street are you thinking? The Chutter side, facing towards the retailers, or the other side of the street?
I was thinking the opposite side just because there's fewer restaurants on that side.
Okay. All right.
If, these are town spaces out front here,
Well, we pay for them, right?
You do.
Here at
so would that take the food trucks up off the flow of traffic a little bit? And maybe keep the congestion?
Again, the food trucks are gonna be in parking spaces. It's no different than a FedEx truck or somebody else pulling up on Main Street.
And you will face it from the sidewalk, so people.
Right, but as far as a lot of traffic on the sidewalk, if it was in this parking lot just up off it,
I
it would
think,
keep.
Roger, I think there'd be less pedestrian traffic than our antique car parade
Okay.
or art shows or anything like that. It's up to Adam, I think it's about exposure, but I'm not worried about pedestrian safety.
Okay.
And also, I mean, I had initially thought, oh, you know, this parking lot, but we're on a slope here, and you can't really do a food truck
Yeah.
on a slope, so.
That was our issue with this lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could do
That's our issue with
sliders.
a lot of locations.
Yeah.
it's slow.
So do you, I mean, we vote permission to just allow the parking spots and, so I would entertain a motion.
For just the. for
Just the
parking
spots.
lot. Right,
Yeah.
okay. I move that motion. I'll
Okay.
make the motion.
Yep,
Okay.
and I'll second.
All right, so all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Adam, I checked with all the churches in town, they didn't want us doing any blessings, so.
Blessings.
Could I just run two things by you guys? I know we're getting close to public comment.
Sure.
The finance report came out today, and I emailed that out to you. And I know Milt would like this to be done once a month. And I want to just make sure that it's probably going to be easier for staff if we can do the second month.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it isn't just printing a report on the first of the month.
meeting.
You got to go back and balance the checkbook, do
Yeah.
reconciliation, and what
It's the
have you.
Second meeting of the month is
Okay.
really when it should.
And I mean, I did send it to you, and it's the same departments. We know that
Right.
that are over. Nothing new got added to it. And if you look at the budget, if everything was absolute online, you would want it 17% or above with how you would look at it. So other than these four departments, overall, the general fund is 23.68. So that gives us, 5.68% that were under budget
Under budget.
going into November. And so that's just a quick rundown, but I mean, but in order for you to go through them, if we have specific ones, we'll try to put it on, then that, we just end that there. Then that way Lori's not trying to rush to get it done, because there's, like I said, you don't just hit November 1 and hit a report. You got your bank statements, you gotta make sure your
Right,
credits have
right.
been allocated, and there's some adjustments and some reconciliation is the term. And the other, and this is just a thought concept, usually in your meeting you have two public comments. Public comments is on every item that's on the agenda. Any item that's on there, your public has to speak. And then at the end of the meeting, you have a generic public comment. Sometimes the folks that are there for that item were a little bit like tonight. They want to come in and say and go. And again, you may have done this way, and there may be a reason there. I have found in the meetings where I'm at that by having the generic public item, public comment in the front, allows those people to speak early.
We changed this years ago, and there was a reason for that. And the reason was that people can comment during, but public comments at the end are for anything else that they want to talk about. And so we had it in the front years ago, and it didn't work well.
Okay.
It didn't work well. So many times, I mean, I haven't been on the board here for a few years, but we've asked people to hold it until the end, because they would start with something that had to do with an item, and then they would drift into something that was related to it, and then we would try to, bring it down to the bottom.
And we did the same thing, but we just separated, so the folks who weren't there on an agenda item got in and out, and then the people who stayed for your meeting is because they had certain items, so that's what.
We've had a few different iterations. At one
Yeah, no
point,
problem,
we
no problem.
didn't allow public comments at all, because legally we don't have to, but we
Right.
felt it was
Oh.
extremely important to.
I agree with you. Yeah.
That's the.
I agree with you. I'm looking at her eyes. The last thing I want is Courtney to not be able to speak on an item. Let alone this guy in the back.
I don't think so the board will go really far.
It's the North Country way. We
Yeah.
wanted to.
No, like I said, it wasn't stopping
Maybe
anyone from
maybe
speaking.
vice
It was just the
versa.
shifting of it, but that's fine.
So,
Remember when we did that?
That's right.
we are at the public comments section.
Yeah,
Rudy,
okay. This is just a suggestion already, we talk about stuff like that. Because everything that's going on, between all the three big entities. It's like police station, fire station, a DOT, okay? Not long ago, he was president. We used to have, you were not around yet, not ever here. We used to have Capital Improvement Committee. You remember that? Okay. This is for you because you're the boss. But anyway, you know what we used to do in this? And you guys really appreciate everything that we did. And all these three entities, the biggest entity, they love us. We call it the chief to say, hey, do you have 10 minutes for me? Oh yeah, come on. Same thing with the fire chief, which was Mercier, the same thing with them. We go with that, and whatever they need, they told us, we make a list, and we give it to you people. Copy to the budgeting, and copy to you guys. Now, if you forget about that, my name is over there. I don't want to get involved. But you know, this is the best way that you guys in town know where all this money, with the budget it goes. They need the money for uniform, for radio, for trucks, you know, and anything else. And you guys really appreciate it. I don't know, take this out, man, you know, as soon as my term expired, then I don't get involved anymore, you know. But this is the best thing that can happen to this town. If you guys think about, you know, to put it Capital Improvement Committee, because you need it. But you do it, you know, this is just an idea, you know, I talk with a couple of people, and, you know, maybe he knows about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to what Rudy had said, I mean, just because I was not here,
No.
what I told him is that maybe that capital budget committee is now part of the capital committee is now part of the overall budget committee. So maybe it kind of, because their role is going to be looking at warrant articles and what have you. So I don't know, I mean, if they've kind of taken on that role.
At least you guys know, you know what's going on, because, you know, we give you the list. No, they give you the list that everything that police station need, DOT need, and you guys already know. It is people that they're gonna be in our community there, they get along with everybody. That doesn't mean, you know, if they go to the DOT, he said that he needs a truck, the guy said, what do you need a truck for? He's gonna explain everything, and everything will go on paper. And then they give it to you people, to the budgeting. So, I mean, you know, it's just,
No, thank you, Rudy. I like the idea of maybe combining or enhancing the budget committee. It's an advisory board. Capital, I'm assuming that was an advisory board.
yeah, it
as
was an
well.
advisory.
Yeah,
But I know we've got a meeting coming up with them where we address the warrant articles, which are your capital items. So I mean, I'm not discounting that he had that group that maybe went out and did a little more investigation or what have you, but I didn't know, since it appeared in the 2014 town report, then it's not there if it was disbanded or it became part of the budget committee.
well, some of these I'm looking at have sunset.
Yeah.
Is that the word, sunsetted?
Yeah.
They were like ad hoc committees and.
Yeah.
Chief?
We're developing a capital improvement plan now.
I know, and I'm going to be the first to say I don't know where this company came from. They were contracted before us.
Okay.
And to be
I thought
honest,
they were-
the town should not have to be contracted with a company to come up with a list that you already know, Mike already knows,
Right.
Doug already
We
knows.
spend enough
No,
money.
Yeah, so
No,
we're
they
paying
haven't.
them, they're not coming in and doing the research, they're charging us for us to
That's
submit
right.
them what we think should be in capital improvement, and it came out of
I thought that was under direction of the planning board. I appreciate it. We're under the impression this is direction of the
Because
planning
we-
board. If you don't want us to communicate with these individuals
Oh,
anymore.
but they've already been contracted, so I mean, let's do what we're doing, but they're duplicating what we've already turned into the budget committee. because a capital plan should be a minimum of a 5-year plan.
That's
With the
correct.
first year is what you're buying. Year 2, 3, and 4, you're planning, and it helps the board and it helps staff look what you need to do. And we all know, economy, any given issue, something might trade out, but it's the map. And I know the negative sometimes on a capital plan is someone might see that final year and add up and say it's 20 million of capital, but that's spread over a number of years and it's broken into the chunks. Like his police cars, you're putting 50,000 away so that when 3 vehicles are come up, you've already got $150,000, in reserves. And so it's a planning tool and it should be part of every budget. I didn't know who did the contract with the company that's doing a function that normally is a staff function.
Well, I
to bring
think
to you
that
all.
the one difference is, the state of New Hampshire requires its towns to have a plan, an overall plan, that we had got done 2 years ago. That same company, I think, was picked to do the capital improvement plan, which is pulling everything within the context of a larger period of time. We all know, for those of us who have been here for some time, that Lakeway Elementary School has been on the top of the list for 30 years in every capital improvement plan.
Yeah, we know sometimes is.
But it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit different in that it's not a year-to-year thing. They put the tent around it, and then they submit the full plan, and it goes down to Concord as well. I know we have to do the 5-year town plan. I'm not exactly sure if that's the right. The capital improvement plan, I'm not sure if that's a voluntary thing or it's required as well. But it's something that I know the budget, the planning board, it's a continuity issue for them. They got one plan done, the second one is the capital improvement. And you're right, in terms of you've already got those numbers.
I mean,
They
if
put
I
it
see it's a
within-
duplication, I'll bring that back to you. If it's
Yeah.
part of your state New Hampshire law that this independent agency needs to do that, then that's what we
Or if
have
it's,
to do.
even if it's not, the capital improvement, I mean, even if it's not a state requirement, the capital improvement plan, they've had other ones, they've always used outside vendors to put the whole thing together for them after they've met with each department. And it's a long-term planning document which has, no guarantee to it, but it's just where the town is at and where it's going. So.
Good. Anything else? Well, thank you, everybody, for being here, and
Adjourn?
I would like an...
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Second it? All in favor, say aye.